What's going on, guys? We are back with another video. We got UFC Unsettled Rivalries, okay? We're going to be looking at some UFC fights that maybe got booked and fell through. Maybe some beefs that were brewing inside the UFC. Maybe there was some altercation backstage, some Twitter beef. I don't know, man. We got a couple of different options here. We got 4 separate fights that did not happen that us as UFC fans needed to happen or need potentially to see in the future. But let's go ahead and get into it with the thumbnail. Starting off first, Dustin Poirier versus Colby Covington. Now, if you don't know any history behind the Colby Covington and Dustin Poirier beef, these two dudes despise each other. It has been said by one of them, I believe it was Dustin. He said if he were to fight Colby Covington, they could not fight in a cage. They would have to fight. Basically, he was saying they need to fight to the death. He said if they fight, they're both going to be locked up behind bars after it's all said and done. But a little bit about the beef between Dustin and Colby, if you still don't know. Dustin and Colby used to train together in Florida. I believe they used to be buddies. They used to be training partners until, according to Colby Covington, by the way, so it could be true, it might be a little bit stretched, but according to Colby Covington, they were boys up until Colby was supposed to fight Robbie Lawler. And apparently Dustin Poirier and Robbie Lawler are also buddies. So according to Colby, once again, Dustin switched up on Colby. That's what he's saying. That's the word on the street. I'm sure there's more to the story, but apparently Dustin Poirier did not want to help Colby Covington train for Robbie Lawler. And then from that point in time, it just seems like Dustin is jealous of Colby Covington. Again, this is from Colby's point of view, guys. I don't know how realistic, how accurate this is. But ever since then, Dustin and Colby, they did not communicate. I believe they even kicked Colby Covington out of the gym. Again, I might be a little bit wrong there. I don't know. But these two don't train together anymore. They legitimately don't like each other. They legitimately want to kill each other. But guys, I know Dustin's making his retirement fight, his final walk, supposedly, against Max Holloway at UFC 318. I'm going to pop out of that event, by the way, guys. I'm about to secure my tickets this week. But we're going to be there at UFC 318 in New Orleans, guys. I'm going to try to put together another vlog video for you. I kind of wish Dustin's last walk in the octagon was going to be against Colby Covington, man. This is a beef that needs to be settled, man. These two genuinely, like I said, do not like each other. The press conference would be so entertaining. Would be so entertaining. Colby Covington would do his best to get under Dustin's skin, and I think he would. I think he would be in Dustin Poirier's head. And bro, I could so see a Dustin Poirier crash out. I could see Colby Covington saying something either super personal, maybe saying something about Dustin's wife. He's been known to do that in the past as well. That definitely fuels some fire in this beef as well. But Colby says something about Dustin's wife, whatever he does. I can see Dustin Poirier really going into a rage, going into full rage mode, throwing a water bottle across the stage at Colby, probably even jumping up out of his seat and trying to rush this man. They're trying to brawl. They're not waiting until they go into the octagon. They're trying to brawl right now. But anyway, the buildup would be insane. Every single person. This could be a main event by itself, guys. This could be a main event by itself. Dustin versus Colby. Everybody would be so hyped for this fight. The buildup, the press conferences, all of this stuff. There would be so many viral clips from it. These guys would be bickering at each other. Like I said, it would get personal. It would get deep. And the fight itself, I guess they would have to jump up to 170. Dustin would have to move up to 170. Dustin's not a small lightweight at all. He's not necessarily a big lightweight either. But the jump to 170, I think he has a legitimate shot to beat Colby Covington, especially at this point in their careers. Colby also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe cuts like less than 10 pounds to make welterweight. Dude, this is a sick fight. Southpaw versus Southpaw, striker versus wrestler. The thing about Colby, bro, obviously, Dustin has the striking advantage. But Colby's got a granite chin. Colby legitimately has a granite chin. He's got the wrestling advantage. Would he be able to take down Dustin? Probably. He's also a little bit bigger. Dude, this fight, this is going to be a war. This would literally be a war. This has fight of the year written all over it. I honestly don't know if there would be a finish in this fight. I think this fight's going all 5 rounds. It would have to be a 5-rounder. You'd have to make it a 5-rounder. I think it would be a bloodbath. Maybe we see another moment where Colby Covington breaks his jaw. Maybe we do. I think Dustin Poirier would also be wearing some damage on his face. Dude, we needed this fight, bro. We're not going to get this fight. It's never going to happen, but man, we needed this. But this is a perfect start to the video, in my opinion. This is a spicy beef, bro. This is bad blood. This is two guys that legitimately don't like each other in a fight That would have been it would have been sick, bro. It would have been sick. Let's keep it rolling. This one's a little bit different. This one's not as much bad blood as a Dustin versus Colby, but this is a true legacy fight that tried to get put together multiple times and always fell through. And now we're hearing sparks, we're hearing talks about it once again to this day. Jones and Ngannou are now both pushing 40. They're past their primes, but now we want to put the fight together. Okay. I don't think it's going to happen. There's just been some talks that Francis Ngannou wants to join the UFC once again. I don't know how true it is. I don't know how accurate it is. It's probably not even going to happen. Jon Jones has his own fight to fight right now, which is Tom Aspinall. And if Ngannou's going to come back, I believe he should fight Aspinall as well. But anyway, Jones versus Ngannou, obviously a major legacy fight. This fight would have been so sick a couple years ago, a few years back. Jones versus Ngannou would have legitimately broke the internet. I got to stop using that word, bro. You're here for vocab lessons, I understand. That's why we're throwing in the word legitimately, man. Write that one down. Self-explanatory. But anyway, Jones versus Ngannou would have, I almost said it again, would have broke the internet. This, dude, maybe not past Conor versus Khabib, but it would have been close, bro. I think this fight has potential to be the highest selling pay-per-view of all time. It's 100% going to be in the top 5. I think this would have been number 2. I think it would have been at least number 2 on the highest selling pay-per-views of all time. Ngannou, Dana White and the UFC did a great job of promoting Francis Ngannou. I wish they would take notes and use the same effort towards Tom Aspinall, but that's another conversation for a different day. But anyway, obviously everybody outside of the UFC knows Jon Jones. He's the UFC GOAT in many people's eyes, including myself. He's a big star, man. As much as you don't like him, he's a big star. Jones versus Ngannou is a super fight. Even if that fight were to get booked today, it obviously wouldn't be as hype as it would a few years back when they were in their primes, when they were at their peaks, when Ngannou was the champion. But it's still, unfortunately, it would be a super fight. If Jones and Ngannou did get booked today, I would be pissed. I would be mad that Jones is not fighting Aspinall. I would feel very bad for Aspinall, by the way. I would be kind of excited. I will say I would be kind of excited to see this matchup. I would feel bad for Aspinall. I would probably make a whole rant video on my UFC page, but I deep down, I'd be kind of excited for this fight. I could get behind it a little bit because they are two big names, two of the bigger names in the sport. Even though Ngannou's not even in the UFC, it's not going to happen, guys. I'm not trying to get your hopes up. It's not going to happen, but this is a super fight. Again, they've had run-ins in the past, even in Turkey or something. They were at some boxing event. They were sizing each other up. They've had beef on Twitter before. Jon Jones apparently says that Francis Ngannou ducked him. Francis Ngannou thinks that Jon Jones ducked him. I don't know the real story, man. We don't know. But it's kind of fishy, man. This fight, I don't understand how there was an excuse for this fight not to get booked. People say, the UFC and Dana try to say that it was Ngannou's fault. Dana says Ngannou ran from Jon Jones. Maybe he wanted more money. I don't know. With the way that Jon Jones has been acting recently, I kind of lean towards it might have been on the Jon Jones side. I'm not saying he's scared of Ngannou. I don't think Jon Jones is scared of anybody. But this was a legacy fight. This was a super fight that really had no excuse not to get booked. This is a fight that Dana White was promising was going to happen, man. Kind of like you hear him do with Aspinall now. The Aspinall-Jones fight wouldn't be as big as the Ngannou fight. I'm not saying that. But you're hearing some similarities. Dana White is promising, Jones versus Aspinall, that fight's done. 100% going to happen this year. Guys, I don't think it's going to happen this year. So you will probably see Jones versus Aspinall in a future video very similar to this. But let's keep it rolling on to the next. This one's a little bit different as well. Khamzat Chamaya versus Paulo Costa. Now, people forget, man, this was a rivalry. This was a beef that was actually pretty heated. It wasn't as bad blood as Colby and Dustin, but they had their moments. Khamzat versus Paulo Costa was booked for, I think it was UFC 294. Yes, dude. UFC 294. You can make a whole video. I can make an hour-long video about that whole UFC event and how cursed it was because I don't want to remind you, but that was the same event that Charles Oliveira pulled out of. Charles and Paulo Costa both pulled out of their fights, like 10 days out from the event. And we all know the fateful day, man. The main event of UFC 294, Volkanovski tried to step in. And, yep, we don't need to talk about it. But anyway, Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa got a little bit heated. They were beefing on Twitter. Paulo Costa, I think there was a moment where Hamza either showed up at his gym or somehow they had some type of altercation. They were just talking back and forth to each other. Hamzat said something like Izzy raped you, something crazy like that, talking about Izzy humping Paulo Costa, something like that. And then Paulo Costa took Hamzat Chimaev's hat, man. They had their moments. They had their moments. I believe they were even, or Paulo Costa was even on the Ariel Helwani show. They were talking about it. They were really selling this beef. And in hindsight, we think Hamzat Chimaev probably would have smashed him. He probably would have taken him down, did like he did to Robert Whitaker, subbed him in the first. Maybe so. I think that is a likely outcome. But if not, Paulo Costa has been in some, here it comes again, guys, legitimate wars. He's been in some real wars. Look at the Yoel Romero fight. Now, Yoel Romero, Olympic wrestling, it's not the same as Hamzat Chimaev's wrestling. On paper, it might be. MMA wrestling, in my opinion, is a whole different breed. Hamzat Chimaev, probably the best grappler in the sport right now. But anyway, I think Hamzat Chimaev would have got it done early. Dude, the build-up, it was good. Could have been even better at the press conference. Unfortunately, we didn't get it. But Hamzat Chimaev more than likely would have smashed him. But if he didn't, that's all I'm saying. If Paulo Costa could have survived the first round, it could have turned into a war. This could have been a potential fight of the year candidate. It could have been similar to Kamaru Usman versus Hamza. Maybe a little bit more violent. I don't see Usman stuffing those takedowns. Or sorry, I don't see Costa stuffing the takedowns and surviving like Usman. But you get what I'm saying. Now, this fight's basically out of the window. Hamzat Chimaev's about to fight for the title in August at 319. Paulo Costa's been on a downward spiral, man. He's taking loss after loss after loss. At least he's losing to really good competition. If he loses to Roman Kopylov, I'm not saying Roman Kopylov is not valid competition. But if he does, if he loses to Roman Kopylov, man, what do you do with him now? Do you give him an unranked guy? Probably. Maybe Paulo Costa starts thinking about, follow Darren Till, man. Go do some boxing or something. I don't know. Paulo Costa's still an entertaining fighter outside of the Sean Strickland fight, which was crazy, by the way. Also, don't know how one judge saw that fight for Paulo Costa, but that's another conversation for another day. But Paulo Costa versus Hamzat Chimaev would have been a sick fight. It would have been a sick build-up. The press conference would have been fun, dude. It would have been fun. Unfortunately, both of these guys tend to pull out of their fights, half the time. At least 50% of the time. It's not just Paulo Costa, man. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't Hamzat Chimaev that pulled out. Hamzat's had his fair share of pullouts as well. We should have known. Whenever this fight got booked, whenever this fight even got talked about, we should have known it was never going to happen. One of them is guaranteed to pull out. They probably would both pull out. I wouldn't be surprised. But Hamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa, never going to happen now. But probably could have been a sick fight. Potential for a sick fight. Either that, it would have been a war, or Hamzat would have finished him early. But let's get on to the final one. This is the one that actually has potential to happen, okay? Ilia Topuria versus Paddy Pimblet. These are the two bigger stars in the lightweight division, at least, on the come up, okay? We got guys like Charles Oliveira, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, Dustin Poirier. They're all on their way out. Even Islam Makhachev has moved up to welterweight. They're all on their way out, okay? This is the next generation of lightweights right here. And Ilia Topuria and Paddy Pimblet already have beef. Now, if you go back in time, I believe it was 2 to 3 years ago, Paddy Pimblet and Ilia Topuria were beefing on Twitter, guys. This seems to be where a lot of it starts, on Twitter. But Paddy Pimblet said something along the lines of, he was basically disrespecting Georgia, the country of Georgia. Paddy was disrespecting it, said something along the lines of, they're soft, he sees how Russia attacks them, something like that, guys. And Ilia Topuria didn't take too kindly of it, which I understand. I understand it didn't sit right with him, which, again, defending his country. But anyway, they ended up running into each other at a UFC hotel, I believe. I think it was at a hotel. Ilia Topuria with like 5 or 6 of his guys, Paddy Pimblet by himself. And shout out to Paddy Pimblet, because Paddy Pimblet stood his ground. They were barking at each other, arguing. They were trying to really go at each other. Paddy Pimblet picks up a hand sanitizer bottle and throws it at Ilia, hits him in the dome. That's where you hear the nickname hand sanitizer boy. If you ever hear Paddy call Ilia that, now you know, okay? But Ilia Topuria, his team was holding him back. If they were to let him go, if these two would have really squared up and fought right there in the hotel, I mean, we might have seen Paddy Pimblet get KO'd on the floor, right there on the floor. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just speculating. At the time, Ilya was a featherweight, but I don't know, man. Even if this fight were to happen today, I don't really like Paddy Pimblett's odds. Now, maybe he has a better shot than some people would give him credit for, but this is a fight. And if you want me to be honest, I think we're going to see this fight. I think we are going to see this fight in 2026. Now, Ilya Tapora has to get through Charles Oliveira to win the lightweight title. And even if Ilya loses to Charles Oliveira, I could see the UFC and both guys pushing for it. I could see an Ilya Tapora versus Paddy Pimblet non-title fight. I really could. I think the UFC is going to wait to see what happens at UFC 317 before they move forward with their matchmaking, because you got guys like Justin Gaethje on the sideline calling for a title shot, which I understand his point of view to an extent, but there's so many options, man. The lightweight division is so crowded. You got Arman Sarukian, who's the #1 contender, and in my opinion, the best lightweight on the planet right now since Islam has moved up. You got guys like, if Max Holloway beats Dustin Poirier, he has a fair shot to get the title shot over Justin Gaethje, in my opinion. And you could even make the argument that Paddy Pimblet deserves it over Justin Gaethje. I know he didn't have to take the Max Holloway fight, man. He's going to use that as an excuse, which maybe he can. He did the UFC a favor by taking that fight. He didn't have to do that, bro. If Justin Gaethje, the funny thing is, if Justin Gaethje would have sat out and not fought at UFC 300, he would have fought for the title against Islam at UFC 302. You know, when Dustin Poirier stepped in off his Benoit Saint Denis win. If Justin Gaethje would have sat out, he was on a win streak at the time. If he would have sat out and not tried to do the UFC a favor with the BMF title fight, he would have fought Islam for the title. Now, he would not have won that fight. I don't think anybody would have picked him to win that fight. But that's just a sad reality of it. I don't like hearing that from Justin Gaethje, because I think that he knew very well that he can't afford to lose to Max Holloway, even if it's an exhibition bout, even if it's for the BMF title. The UFC fans don't want to see somebody jump into a title shot off of a loss, off of a non-title fight loss. But now he's bringing it up as if that fight didn't really matter. He lost to a guy from a lower weight class, by the way, which, you know, light man skill, it's a bad look, bro. It's a bad look, especially if Max Holloway beats Dustin Poirier. You have no claim to the title. You have no claim to the title even over Max Holloway. But anyway, guys, this is the only fight on here that I could see actually happening. Jones versus Ngannou, I guess, would be second, but it's not going to happen, bro. Ilya versus Paddy, I feel, you know, I give it a 65% chance of happening. I think there's a real possibility we get this at some point in their careers. Both guys are young, even though Ilya talks about retiring early. I think this fight's going to happen. I think it's going to happen very, very soon. But that's going to be it for me, guys. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Go ahead and hit the like button, man. Go ahead and comment something for the algorithm. Let me know if you enjoyed it. Hit the subscribe button if you're new. Hit that bell. Turn the post notifications on, guys. We're going live every Tuesday, every Thursday. And we're going to be live for UFC Atlanta, Kamaru Usman versus Joaquin Buckley. So you do not want to miss out on any of that, guys. I appreciate y'all once again, and we out.